In this lecture, we're going to begin sending the player's health over to the UI. So far, we've created custom events without sending data. This time, things are different. We must send the player's current health with the event. Otherwise, the UI won't be able to update the labels. Luckily, Unity's event system supports additional data. We must make a few tweaks to our event before we start sending data from the player's controller. In your editor, open the Event Manager class. First, we can force our events to send data by adding a generic to the event definition. After the Unity action type, add a generic with the float type. The player's health is stored with the float type. We must accurately describe the type of data we're sending over. Next, an error will be thrown by our editors. The invoke method is empty. Since we added a type, our invoke method must send a value with this type. First, let's accept the data while it's being raised. In the parameter list, add a parameter called new health points with the float type. Next, pass this data onto the invoke method. Any methods registered with our event will receive this data. Let's start raising our event. There are two moments in our game when the UI should be updated. Firstly, when the game begins. Secondly, when the player has taken damage. Open the player controller. Our controller is going to need access to the Event Manager class. So, let's add the rpg.core namespace. Scroll to the Start method. Inside this method, we're setting the player's stats. After the player's stats have been set, we should start sending this information to the UI. At the bottom of the Start method, call the Event Manager.RaiseChangePlayerHealth method. Next, let's pass in the health component.healthPoints variable. Great! However, this will only send the health at the start of the game. We should update the label whenever the player takes damage. We outsourced the logic for reducing health from the health component. Open this component with your editors. Before raising the event, we should add the rpg.core namespace. Next, scroll to the Take Damage method. We should raise the event after the health has been updated. But first, we must verify that we're raising the event from the player. Keep in mind, the health component is attached to enemies. The UI shouldn't update while the enemy's health is being reduced. Add a conditional statement with the following condition. Compare tag constants.player tag. This conditional statement is nothing new to us. We're checking the current tag for the player tag. If we're working with the player, let's raise the event. Call the Event Manager.RaiseChangePlayerHealth method with the health points variable. After making those changes, let's try playing our game. While we haven't had the opportunity to update the labels, the game should be fully functional without throwing errors. A method hasn't been registered with our event. Despite that, an error is not thrown because of the null conditional operator. As long as an error does not get thrown, we're good to go. In the next lecture, let's update the label with the player's health.